video, we're going to be dividing decimals. So yesterday we divided decimals by whole numbers, but today we're going to divide whole numbers by decimals and we're going to divide some decimals by decimals. The rule stays the same for both, so we're going to jump in and let's get started. You should have your notes page. It looks like this. We're going to do something a little bit different today, and we're going to work on these problems out of order. So we're actually going to start over here with our 13 2/10 divided by 6/10. So the most important thing to remember about dividing decimals is that you can't. You cannot have a decimal in your divisor. It doesn't work. So what we have to do is we have to get rid of that decimal by swooping it. So I have a 6/10 here. I want to get rid of my decimal and turn it into a 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swoop my decimal, one to the right, and it's going to go here. And as we know, 6 and 0/10 equals 6. So 6.0 or 6 decimal is the same as 6. So I got rid of my decimal by swooping it once. But if I swoop it once in the divisor, I have to swoop it once in the dividend as well. So we're going to swoop once in the dividend, just like we did in the divisor. And then our decimal goes here. We're going to keep practicing with it. So just keep an eye out for that. Everything else is going to stay exactly the same as it was yesterday, though. So now we're just going to divide like normal. We know that 6 cannot go into 1. 1 divided by 6 does not matter. So I'll put my 0 up there. 13 divided by 6 is 2. Let's put our does McDonald's sell burgers up here. I just divided. Now let's multiply. 2 times 6 is 12. You know what I noticed yesterday? Yesterday, I noticed that a lot of you are trying to say, how many times can 6 go into 132? And then you started writing out your multiples of 6, and then you never stopped because it takes a long time to get to 132. Be easy on yourself. 6 can go into 13. It doesn't have to go into 132. Now I know 2 times 6 is 12, so I multiplied. It's time to subtract. And now it's time to bring down that 2. 12 divided by 6 is 2. 2 times 6 is 12. And we are done. So let's go ahead and bring that decimal up and decide what it means. Remember, the way we work a decimal is we bring it straight up in a division problem. Looking at that decimal, 22 decimal is the same as just saying 22 regular. Because 22 and is the same as just the number 22. So our answer for this problem is 22. Let's go on and jump into another one. Let's go ahead and do 9 6/10 divided by 1 6/10. Remember, just like we discussed earlier, you cannot have a decimal in a divisor. Can't do it. Doesn't work. So what you have to do is swoop it out. So we're going to put our marker here. We're going to swoop to once to the right to put the decimal after the 16, because we know that if the decimal is after the 16, it doesn't really mean anything. And we have to do the same thing to the dividend, because if you do it to the divisor, you have to do it to the dividend. So we're going to swoop it out as well and put it there. Now we can just divide. 96 divided by 16. Remember, there are 2 strategies for solving this. I could estimate in my brain and think, I bet it's going to be 5. Or you can just write out your multiples of 16. I'm going to go ahead and write out my multiples for 16 because I think it really helps a lot of you. So 16, and I know that 16 times 2 is 32. So now I have to take 32 and add 16 to it. That's 48. So now I've got to take 48 and add 16 to it. So that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 64. I bet I can get closer to 96. So now I've got to take 64 and add 16 to it. 10, 7, 8. That gets me 80. I bet I can get close to 96. 80 plus 16 will get me 96. So if I had estimated like I wanted to do from the beginning, I would have gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would have gotten 80. And I would have had to multiply my 19 times 6 as well to get me to 96. Or you can write out your multiples. It's totally up to you. But as we can see, it is 16 times 6 to get 96. So 96, too many 6s. 16 can go into 96 6 times, because I know that 6 times 16 is 96. We subtract, there's nothing left. Go ahead and let's take a look at that decimal. We're going to bring it straight up, and it's going to go right there. And our answer is 6. Now let's tackle the one over here, 327 divided by 5/10. Now, you know already that when you have a decimal in the divisor, it won't work, and you have to swoop that decimal out. So we're going to swoop it out just once. And then you know that we have to do the same thing in the dividend that we did in the divisor, but look, there's no decimal. Where do you put a decimal in a whole number that has no decimal? I hope you remember, you put it afterwards. Because remember, if I say 327 decimal point, that equals 327. So I can put a decimal point afterwards. Now, we swooped it on the divisor side once to the right. So we're going to have to swoop it once to the left. Swoop once. And I know you're like, Miss Wilson, there's no number there. Yes, there is now. Because you've put a 0. I know. Mind blown. You have to swoop the divisor. So we have to swoop the dividend. We're going to swoop it out once and put a 0. Now you divide like normal. This is going to be a super easy problem. How many times does 5 go into 32? I know that 5 times 6 is 30. So I know it goes in 6 times. 32 minus 30 is 2. Bring down that 7. How many times does 5 go into 27? 5 times, because 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract and bring down that 0. How many times does 5 go into 20? 4 times, because 5 times 4 is 20. Beautiful. Let's take a look at that decimal. You're going to bring the decimal straight up from where we swooped it. So my answer is going to be 654. Because I know if I had that decimal in the end, it really doesn't mean anything. So I'm going to leave it off because it looks funny. 654. Let's do one more together before you start trying some on your own. Let's do this 1 and 56 hundredths divided by 26 hundredths together. 1 and 56 hundredths divided by 26 hundredths. As you can see, in the divisor, there is a decimal, and we cannot have a decimal in the divisor, so we have to swoop it. So we're going to say swoop 1, swoop 2, decimal goes there. Same thing on the dividend side. If you do it to the divisor, you have to do it to the dividend. We're going to swoop once, swoop twice, decimal goes here. Now all we have to do is divide. Now I will say this one's going to be a little bit more challenging because I have to come up with the multiples of 26. So I know 26 is the, first one. And then the next one, 26 plus 26, that's going to get me 52. And then to add 26 again, I'm going to have 78. And then we're going to add 26 again, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 104. I can go a little bit bigger, so we're going to add 26 again. My handwriting's a little messy today. It's going off to the side here. 10 to 120. I bet we can get closer. 120 plus 26. 146. I bet I'm not going to get any closer to 100. Ooh. I wonder if I did something wrong here, because that means it's not going to go in cleanly. I'm going to double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to say 26 times 6, because I know that I am stronger at multiplication than I am at addition, so I'm double checking myself. 6 times 6 is 36. 2 times 6 is 12, 13, 14, 15. I did get that wrong. I wonder where I went wrong. That's why you always have to double check yourself, because I got 146, but the answer was 156. That makes me really nervous for where I got it wrong. I'm sure you're sitting in your seat going, Miss Wilson, this is what you did wrong, and I appreciate that, but I can't hear you right now. So it's going to be okay. So we know that 26 goes into 156 6 times, because 6 times 26 is 156. If you catch my mistake, let me know, and I will go get you an eraser from the closet. Go ahead and bring that decimal straight up. So I know my answer is 6, because if I said 6 decimal, the decimal doesn't matter. I want you to go ahead and work out 81 and 2/10 divided by 1 and 4/10. Remember, you have to swoop it. Cannot have a decimal in the divisor. Try not to make mistakes like I just did and go to work. All right, for this one, you should have taken your decimal in your divisor and swooped it out, so swooping it once. Then take your decimal in your dividend and swoop it the same direction one time. Now let's solve. I wonder how many times 14 can go into 81. I didn't do so well writing my multiples last time. I don't know what happened. So I'm going to try to estimate. I know that 14 is kind of close to 10. And if it was a 10, it could go in 8 times. So I'm going to try 7. 14 times 7. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. Oh, wow. I really overestimated. Let's try 14 times 6. 6 times 4 is 24. 6, 7, 8. Oh, wow, that didn't work either. I'm going to have to do 14 times 5. Sometimes estimating isn't perfect. 4 times 5 is 20. 5, 6, 7. So I know that 14 times 5 is 70. I hope you got that as well. Bring everything down, subtract, all that giant mess. Oh my goodness, I have to get to 112. Well, I know that 14 times 7 is 98, so let's try 14 times 8. 4 times 8 is 32, 8, 9, 10, 11. There we go. 112 divided by 14 is 8, because 8 times 14 is 112. Now let's take a look at that decimal. We're going to bring it straight up. And if you brought that decimal straight up, your answer would be 58 decimal. But we know that that decimal doesn't mean anything, so we don't have to keep it. Go ahead and do your last problem. 97 and 44 hundredths divided by 12 hundredths. Try it out. For this one, you had to swoop twice. 1 swoop, 2 swoop. Leave the decimal there. If I do it to the divisor, you have to do it to the dividend as well. Decimal on it, 1 swoop, 2 swoop. Put your decimal back. Looks good, looks good. Now let's divide 12 into 97. I have some of my 12s memorized. I don't think I have that many of my 12s memorized. I know that 12 times 5 is 60. So let's try 12 times 7. Oh, that got me 84. I bet I can go higher than that. Let's try 12 times 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 96. There we go. 12 can go into 97 8 times, because 8 times 12 is 96. Time to subtract, we get 14. 12 can go into 14 one time, because 1 times 12 is 12. Subtract and bring down that 4. 24 divided by 12 is 2, because 2 times 12 is 24. Make sure you're checking your work with mine. Now we're just going to bring that decimal straight up. And your answer is going to be 812 decimal. But we know that that decimal does not matter. So your answer is 812. Make sure you double check your work and you got the same thing I did. If you did not, make sure you raise your hand and ask.